You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me, as always, as Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Big win, man. I'm excited. What a great game. And we just finished watching another great game of the Sunday night game as well. I'm certainly excited to talk some football.
Yeah, my Raiders look really, really good today over the Steelers. It was a big win. Thank you so much for saying that. No, I'm glad I brought it up. Yeah. What a fun day of football, Landon. I just want to say, I mean, I know it's way more fun when the Cowboys win, but it was just a good day of football today. Let's start with that Cowboy game. So the Cowboys got their Week 2 win over the Los Angeles Chargers, 20-17. Landon, it wasn't pretty. Did not allow style points here for Dallas, but they got the job done. Give us some of your initial reactions.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need to think back to how we were feeling about this team, Wednesday afternoon, let's just say. I mean, I think, considering all the things that this team went through this week, losing DeMarcus Lawrence, not getting Randy Gregory out of COVID, having their defensive line coach buried by the sled, almost like having a really serious situation with Ty Nsekhe on the field with the Heat situation. It's just been, and then Leo Collins, and it's just been a crazy week of just really just bad news after bad news. So, you mentioned not having style points. I mean, absolutely, there was points in this game that didn't look good, but I thought the Cowboys came out there and showed a lot of heart and showed that they can win a football game more than one way. And I think that makes them a lot more dangerous team than I think a lot of people expected, especially the way that they were able to kind of fight through adversity in this game specifically and still win.
All right, so where do you want to start? Offense, defense, winners and losers. I'll give you the floor. How would you like to start?
Let's start with the defense. I thought that they only allowed one touchdown against a really good Chargers team, and were able to make turnovers. And what's really stuck out to you on this defense? Because I think there's lots of things that we can kind of go down that avenue.
I mean, they give up big plays just at will, and that is so frustrating. However, the idea behind the Dan Quinn defense is bend but don't break, Landon, right? They did a lot of bending today, but they certainly didn't break. They got the plays when they needed to. I would say through the first 2 weeks of the season, they have, 6 turnovers now? It's just a defense that seems like they're way more confident and they're playing fast. Now, that doesn't mean they're better necessarily, because you still see big lapses in coverage, and the run defense is not always great. But you see guys flying to the football, like Malik Hooker. You saw him make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. Jaron Kearse played the best game I've ever seen him play in his career, right? It just feels like the unit feels very confident about what they're supposed to be doing and executing, and they're doing a good job at doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, are they still undermanned talent-wise? I think
Absolutely.
so. They still have a lot of guys that they're missing, But I mean, I think the fact that you saw who was out there today and who was missing, and the fact that they were able to hold this Chargers team who did not look like they were ever going to fail on a third down at one point during this game, and to hold them to only 17 points. I mean, one touchdown. I mean, honestly, the story of this game is the difference between these two teams in the red zone. The Cowboys go 2 of 3 for 67% of their red zone trips, and Chargers only end up going 1 of 4. And I think that allowing only one touchdown, obviously the interception in the end zone by KZ was absolutely enormous. And you could say what you will about Diggs and kind of having an up and down day. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they targeted. He basically stuck on. I'm totally blanking on his name. Always blanking on his name. Keenan Allen all day long, and I think that he had 8 targets or something like that. Only 4 were completed. He had that big long 42-yard play where even Diggs even managed to get a hand on that ball still, and Allen came up with it. But I thought that the secondary is playing at a level that it hasn't played in a while. I commented on during the game. there's depth in the secondary. And there's depth in the safety position. When was the last time we had depth in the safety where we lost more than one safety and we're like, oh, it could be okay. Like it used to be a disaster if we lost even one. So I mean, I think you mentioned Curse and Hooker, who I both thought played really, really well.
Can I give you another guy that I thought played really well?
Yeah,
and actually,
please.
I thought Leighton Vander Esch played the best game that he has in a long time. It wasn't perfect.
Absolutely.
Like, first of all, Justin Herbert is ridiculous. The throw that he made to Austin Eckler when Leighton Vander Esch was covering him was just absolutely insane. But Vander Esch made plays. I'm looking at the stats right now, Leighton. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. He also drew at least one holding call, a big, big holding call that I think took away a touchdown for the Chargers. So, again, he maybe not still living up to that first-round pick status, but he made a lot of big plays in this game to help the defense get off the field.
And Jalen Smith made a lot of tackles, too, as much as no one wants to hear it, too. I think those linebackers played well, considering the fact that, that Parsons basically, and we haven't even mentioned Parsons yet, but that Parsons, basically had to come down and play defensive end for almost exclusively the whole game. I mean, go back and watch that game. On a play-by-play basis, like Herbert was dominant on third downs, but he was getting to a lot of third and long situations. Again, it's kind of what we talked about pregame, where it was like Wentz with the Eagles that one year, where he's not getting into good situations, but he's getting into 3rd and 15 and he's converting them. He's getting into because he's making crazy throws, and it wasn't sustainable for the whole game, and ultimately that proved out once the game got condensed a little bit into the red zone. Herbert showed a little bit of weakness, not much, but certainly the rest of his offense, when they needed him to make plays, they weren't doing it for him.
I'm really excited to go back and watch the All-22 Landon to see like Osa Odigizua. From just the naked eye, I thought he had a pretty nice game. I'm curious to see how some of the other edge rushers played. Dorrance Armstrong had a couple of nice rushes, but that's something that we're going to have to talk about hopefully Tuesday if the All-22 comes out. We'll make sure we do that. Let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline. We are back and better than ever. All eyes are now on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site interface, even more odds, props, and contests, betonline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. Just make sure you're using that promo code NFL100. All right, Landon, let's talk about Micah Parsons, because I think for a lot of people, he was the big story of the day. He played, almost primarily defensive end. I know before the game, there was a report, I believe by Ian Rappaport, that said Parsons was going to move to defensive end. I kind of just shook that off as like, hey, it's just going to be a part-time thing. I know even the Dallas Cowboy writers, our friend David Hellman said, nope, that's not going to be the case. He's going to do some work there. He played almost every snap at defensive end this week. What were your thoughts on him in this game? Yeah,
I mean, it was shocking. I think we expected that he would come in and do a little bit of that for sure, but I expected it to be kind of a blitz, a mix of blitzing from his normal kind of linebacker position, and then taking some snaps in rotation with Basham and Armstrong. But that really wasn't the case, and he actually Anai was. I mean, there was a heavy rotation. Anai got some snaps there too, but Parsons was basically playing exclusively defensive end. And once they figured out, there was a mismatch on the other side and the right tackle spot, they basically left him over there and let him rush there for the rest of the game. And that's really where he started to have an incredible rate of success. I kind of think I remember reading that he had by Seth Walder, was it Walder that it said 40% pass rush win rate? Win rate, yep. That's easy for me to say. It was, I mean, that's incredible for a guy who's never done it before. I mean, or didn't do it in college. I mean, that was an incredible rate. I mean, honestly, I think you talk about key things that really will blow your mind and tell you just what kind of game this was. Micah Parsons had more success as a pass rusher than Joey Bosa did in this game.
Can I read you a stat from our good friend John Owning?
Yeah.
All right. Micah, the pass rusher, finished. This is reading the tweet. Finished the game with 8 total pressures against the Chargers, most in the game for any player, and 4th among all edge defenders in week 2. He was also 5th in pass rush win rate percentage among all defensive ends in week 2.
I mean, that's pretty good. Like, obviously we're going to temper our excitement a little bit because they were playing against a guy who, again, sounds like he was storming Norman Schwarzkopf from the original Gulf War, but his name's Storm Norm. He's not a creative player that they put out there. It was just it was an actual backup tackle in the NFL, and he destroyed him. So let's see what happens next week. Obviously, the Eagles are going to. I mean, we don't even need to talk about what's going on next week, but I think there's going to be some challenges coming up in these few weeks to see exactly how well this continues, and if this is just a situation where they were taking advantage of a backup with the super athlete like Parsons, or if Parsons really has a home here.
My gut call, Landon, is it's probably not going to be a full-time thing, and I even think today, in certain situations, you saw like Parsons was a little overmatched. Like on first downs, if you need him to set the edge, it's just not what he's going to do really well, right? But if you want somebody to get up the field quickly on 3rd down and 9, I get it. Next week when they play the Eagles, and we're going to get into this matchup more as the week goes on, but you should have Randy Gregory back. Parsons' value might be more important to have him spy Jalen Hurts next week than to have him blitzing off the edge, right? So I think this isn't a permanent thing. I just think this is part of the appeal when you draft a Micah Parsons is we can use them all over the place. We can take advantage of weaknesses on defenses. They did it today.
Look, I think it's time to start believing that this team is buying into a game plan based concept on both offensive and defense. I think that if anything showed this week, based on what we've seen last week, is that they are actually adapting to their per game plan, talk. That wasn't just lip service. I mean, clearly moving Parsons out there. And I think that that's what Parsons is going to be, is that, hey, this week we need you to rush the edge because Gregory's hurt, or we need to have 3, defensive ends when Lawrence comes back. So we need you to do this. This week we need you to, spy Jalen Hurts or spy Lamar Jackson. If, goodness gracious, that what a good game he had tonight. It's just like, I think like that, it's just like a game plan situation. And just like on offense, and we'll talk about that. The offense, we talked about, this is what you have to do against a Brandon Staley defense. You have to be able to run the football because he's going to allow you to run the football. And then you have to take advantage of that short and intermediate pass game. And I'm pretty sure that Dak was something like 20 for 20 inside of like 15 yards passing. So, I mean, I think this is a team that is clearly making the transition to adapting to what they're facing in order to kind of reveal what kind of game plan they're going to have.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys offense. So Dak Prescott, 23 of 27, just incredible efficiency, 237 yards, 8.8 yards per attempt. Did not throw a touchdown, but did hit an interception. The run game, 31 carries for 198 yards, 6.4 yards per attempt. Landon, you and I both had a little bit of a feeling that this was going to be the case, that the Chargers were going to basically allow Dallas to run against light boxes in order to prevent big plays in the passing game. Were you happy with the offense's performance today or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I would have liked to see more points. I think they actually, this is a difficult defense to play against. And without La'el Collins, without Michael Gallup, obviously they were playing a little bit shorthanded. But I think that if we talked about the reasons that you needed to kind of get the run game going. And I think really what Tony Pollard did today was serve as you needed to find a way to get big plays. And Tony Pollard was that big play threat when they couldn't make the plays down the field because there's so much cover 2 going on, so much shell palms coverage that's just not going to allow guys to break free down the field. You needed something in the run game to get some explosives and kind of giving Pollard a more 50-50 mix against this run defense that didn't have a safety coming down, to stop it. It really provided some big play opportunities for Pollard to kind of provide that spark when the Cowboys offense needed. And Zeke kind of provided the more, just reliable, just constant 5-6, yards. I mean, there was a couple times when he made some bad reads and he got some tackles behind the loss, but he made up with it later. And I thought that, obviously another great game by him, pass blocking, and you can't just say enough about what these running backs did for this offense this week, and how different it is versus what they did last week, and how again, going back to what we're talking about, game plan based, or team based game plans, matchup based game plans. They came out this week and they ran the ball down their throats because that's what the defense provided for them. So it just shows like a really good. It just bodes well for the future. I guess what I was trying to say.
All right, there's so many different things we can talk about with this offense, and we're going to make sure we do this all week long. We're going to really go into this game looking at the film. We're going to reevaluate Terrence Steele as a performance, but I think for the most part, he held up well, right? Like, and we talked about this on our previous shows. Like, yes, going from Lyle Collins to Terrence Steele is a big downgrade, but this isn't a coaching staff that was going to allow a Chaz Green, Adrian Claiborne situation, right? It was pretty clear the Cowboys devised a game plan to kind of throw the ball away from Bosa. They made sure that they were always chipping. They always had somebody around just in case. But I think Terrence Steele did play pretty well, and I think that's a big reason for the Cowboys' success, especially in the run game. I don't know, Landon, if you saw it, but man, Terrence Steele was just mauling guys in the run game.
Yeah, and I think that's really, where you hope that kind of work in the weight room really improved his game. I mean, he just didn't do a lot of run blocking in college. I mean, if anything, I think he had something like 1,000 pass sets in college, if I'm not mistaken. So to see him kind of get, some more strength and be able to, avail himself of that in the run game was really key. I thought one of the other things we talked about that will be kind of forgotten in this game because of some other numbers elsewhere is how much efficiency they found in the tight end game as well. I think they had over 50 yards receiving between the two, and they had some big plays from both Schultz and Jarwin, where obviously they're trying to take away Cooper. They're trying to take. They did a really good job of taking away Cooper, and they try to take away Lamb as the game went on, and the Cowboys were able to find find answers in the short passing game, intermediate passing game, especially with, like I said, the tight ends and just kind of getting the ball out in the flats to the running backs. So just very good job of adapting to the way the defense was playing them and then finding ways to overcome and win.
I know the Cowboys only scored 20 points in this game, and it's a little bit discouraging considering how good their offense is. But, Landon, they only had 3 possessions in the second half in this game. And the one was a punt where Dak got sacked. They actually had a false start, and then Dak got sacked, and they had to punt. The next 2 possessions was a 10-play, 64-yard field goal drive. And then the last one of the game, 11 plays, 49 yards, and it took up 4 minutes. That last drive, I went back and rewatched it. Do you know how rare it is to have the ball the final 4 minutes of the game when your opponent has 3 timeouts, and for you to burn that entire clock and then to have to kick a 56-yard field goal? Like, that was – it was, I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. It was something I haven't seen in a long time.
Look, we talked about it with Staley. One of the things that really makes his defense unique is that he, every defense has a weakness, and Staley kind of designed his own weakness, right? He understood that that the run game is not an efficient way necessarily to win football games. That the modern NFL game is passing. That's what's king. Mm-hmm. At the same time, this is the downside here. The Cowboys kicked their butts all game. And in the fourth quarter, when they got the ball back in the fourth quarter, after kicking their butts all up and down the field in the run game, they weren't going to stop the Cowboys run blocking at that point. They weren't suddenly going to be able to turn it on and stop the Cowboys run blocking because they had to. That's just that, and that's ultimately the flaw there, is that, if you don't have the playmakers making plays on your defense there, and the Cowboys are able to just methodically play efficient football like they were and not make huge mistakes. When they made mistakes, it hurt them, but they did a good job of mostly being efficient, making the plays that were there. And at the end of the game, this defense didn't have an answer for physical football. They had an answer for a passing attack that, the Cowboys had downshifted out of. And unfortunately, when 4-minute offense comes up and you have to stop the run, they're not going to suddenly find an answer there that they hadn't found all game.
Well, not only that, is the Chargers basically played this umbrella defense that you kind of mentioned,
Yep.
where they just weren't giving up big plays, and Dak took advantage of it. Landon, I'm just going to read you the yardage on the final plays of the game. So this is the last 11 plays. Ezekiel Elliott, 1 yard loss, but a Blake Jarwin 7-yard reception, and Ezekiel Elliott 7-yard reception, Tony Pollard for 5 yards, Ezekiel Elliott for 4 yards, Ezekiel Elliott for 4 yards, Dak Prescott to Ezekiel Elliott for 5 yards, Amari for 12, Wilson for 4, Pollard for 4. It's like they just had like these little tiny chunk plays, and it's exactly what you need in a 4-minute offense. And the Cowboys almost executed it to perfection. I think settling for a 56-yard field goal was a little bit aggressive, or whatever, whatever you want to use.
That whole thing was weird, and I don't know what I would have liked McCarthy to give more of an answer in the post game press conference, but it sounded like at some point in the 37-second range they lost track of the clock, like the clock that they were looking at. Kellen Moore's got blocked by a camera, and Mike McCarthy's like it just disappeared off the board he was seeing, and then suddenly by the time and he talked about the thresholds that they have, right? And that after 17 seconds, like they wouldn't have tried another play. Yeah. So by the time that they looked up and they saw there was like 16 seconds, they decided that they had to try the field goal there. But they apparently had a play. They had a play in mind for third down, but because of the situation with the clock, and I don't know who to blame, if that's just McCarthy losing track or what it was, but if you go back and watch it too, McCarthy was like pissed. Like when the timeout finally got in, and he was like pointing at something. So I would like to get a better answer there from McCarthy, because that was a very odd sequence at the end of the game.
All right, yeah, I'm sure we'll find out more about that as the week goes on. Couple things I want to tell you about before we finish out the show. First is DirecTV. DirecTV Stream is the way to go if you want to watch your favorite shows, sports, movies, whatever you want to watch. You can watch them all under the same umbrella with no annual contract. Get to your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Also want to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate with amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next box at BuiltBar.com. All right, let's do a couple quick hitter things, Landon. First and foremost, special teams, man. Holy cow. Kicker was good. That's just about it. Greg Zuerlein looked like he was the kicker that we're used to seeing, drilling that 56-yard field goal. But the special teams penalty on the punt block when it was 4th and 20, that's pretty brutal. It's just, man, they just can't stay out of their own way sometimes on special teams.
I want to go back and watch that play, man. That
Kamara
to me
looks like he got a little bit pushed into it. Right?
He got pulled into it.
However, why are you rushing on that play anyways? That's my question.
He's trying to block the kick. And I don't know. Everyone was talking about how that's a punt safe situation. You're in a close game. You're trying to block the personal protector into the punter. I think that's ultimately what they were trying to do. And I think ultimately they did. But the protector pulled the guy that was blocking him into the kicker, and for some reason, look, I hate to keep going to the refs, man, but the refs.
I was going to talk about them next. Let's just talk about them, because a lot of people think that the Cowboys were on the short end, or excuse me, the Chargers were on the short end of the stick today on a lot of calls. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought honestly that both teams got it pretty bad.
It's a bad crew. I thought it's not a good
honestly
crew
that was a
all.
terrible crew. And people were talking about how sloppy things were. I honestly think that the refs were sloppy. I mean, they just made so many bad calls, and it just kind of missed things largely. And then felt like there was forced makeup calls that they were trying to do. It just, there's a certain point where really bad crews screw something up, and they get into this kind of cycle of constantly playing, keep up with score, like trying to make sure that everyone got equal calls and just over inserting themselves in the game. I just thought that's what's happening in this game. It's over officiating.
And I don't remember exactly the play that happened, but there was a play where the Chargers got called for a legal man down the field, and the lineman might have been 2 yards down the field instead of only being one. It's like, we don't need that to be called this game. Like nobody who's watching that game on Sunday is feeling like that call needs to be had. And we're saying this from Cowboy fans, right? Like obviously there was some for the other side where the Cowboys didn't get the benefit of the doubt, the J-Ron Curse interception.
Oh my God, the
curse Amari Cooper fourth down. But it's just like stay out of the way, refs. Like if you're gonna let them play, just let them play. It's I don't know. I get so frustrated with the incompetences of this crew.
It's really frustrating, and the NFL really has to do something about it. Again, we won this game, and I'm still complaining about how terrible the refs were, and they were bad for the Cowboys too. Let's not just suggest that it was only like you mentioned several of those plays. I thought it was just bad all around, and of all the crews on the field, the refs were the worst crews.
All right. Anything else in this game that sticks out that you wanted to mention? Again, we've got a lot of analyzing to do over the next couple of weeks. Or the Cowboys don't play till next Monday, so we've got quite a few shows. Anything else you want to mention?
I just love the heart that this team played with. I mean, look again, like think about where we were, after DeMarcus Lawrence's injury, where we were with this team. No one was giving this team a chance, and I think suddenly you see what they did, the way they're able to adjust their game plan based on who they were facing and who was playing on their team. And come away with a really gutsy win where you had both sides of the ball pulling their weight, and I just thought that was really impressive.
For other thing I want to say is don't underestimate the importance of a win like this for the defense. Right, this is a defense that's been told all offseason that they're bad and they're not good, and they just they only allowed 17 points to the Chargers, and they forced 2 turnovers on the road with a bunch of guys being out. So I think the confidence of this defense is going to go up. I think it's also great for the offense. Like, listen, we don't have to put on our Superman cape every single game and go put up 38 points to win. The defense gets paid too. Go out there and make some stops. You don't have to make every stop, but go out there and do it. I just think that's very important. Go ahead. You have a thought?
Last thing, just because I can't believe we haven't said, I mean, we mentioned Terrence Steele, but I mean, this offensive line played fantastic.
Zach Martin looked like there was no ill effects at all from COVID, right?
Yeah, and they were just steamrolling that defensive line all game. I mean, some of the pass blocking, got a little sketchy at different points, but I mean, it was not anything to write home about. And the run blocking was as dominant as this team has looked in a long time. It was really, really nice to see.
Last thing for me, the touches split in the backfield. Ezekiel Elliott had 18 touches. Tony Pollard had 16. But if you include Tony Pollard's kickoff returns, it was pretty close. I think that's just the way they should use him going forward. Like, I think today was the perfect balance, right? Pollard came in and ran a lot of the wide zone stuff, a lot of the outside the tackle stuff. Elliott was your hammer, right? Just kind of downhill, getting 5-6 yards when everything's blocked semi-decently. I just think that's the best way for the Cowboys offense going forward. Just not to have one guy have 25 touches and the other 5. This just makes way more sense to me.
Yeah, I think it depends on who they're playing, but I certainly like having a closer to 50-50 mix than we have for most of these games. It just makes a lot of sense because you get such a great mixture of the two.
Well, and I think a lot of people are wondering why not more touches for Tony Pollard, and I understand, but I feel like 15 touches is the right amount for Pollard.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I feel like the right amount of touches for Ezekiel Elliott at the stage of his career is like 15 touches, right? Like, keep those guys fresh, keep teams off balance. We've been saying this all offseason, Landon. It's better for everybody if it's closer to a 50-50 split than ever before, right?
Absolutely. And I think this was such a great blueprint for a run dominant game where you need to run the football. Yes. The best way to do it, especially in a 17-game season, you need to keep both of these guys fresh.
All right, so we'll be back on Tuesday to continue to break down some of the film. Hopefully we get the L22 to break some of it down. We've got a crossover. Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. We got a crossover show later this week. We've got a preview coming up probably on Monday for Cowboys Eagles on Monday Night Football. Landon, Cowboys 1-1, tied for first place in the division. How's it feel, buddy?
Feeling good. It's good to get a win. It's been a long time that we've gotten a win that has actually meant something, and so it's really nice.
I was telling my brother this is the first win since week 2 of last year where you feel good coming out of the win, because when they beat the Giants last year, we were not talking about that win at all, right? And every win from that point on of the season just kind of felt empty. It's been a long time since this team has had a good feeling win. And even in that one, in week 2 last year, they didn't even lead at any point in that game except for 0-0. So it's fun. I'm excited. It's going to be a good week. Make sure you are downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy your Monday. We'll see you guys next time.